Welcome to our channel. Today you will learn an impressive story of survival and spiritual revelations that can change your outlook on life and the future. Ezra Holloway went through 4 near-death experiences and in his last NDE received a prophecy about a great transformation between October 13th and 17th, 2024. Before we start, comment below which city you are watching from, and if you haven't yet, if you are subscribed, take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications. This way you don't miss any of our next videos. Now, let's go on this fascinating journey. Hello, my name is Ezra Holloway. I have a story to tell that, well, completely changed my life. It's not every day that someone goes through near-death experiences, is it? Well, I went through this not once, not twice, but 4 times. 4 times. It sounds crazy, I know. But it happened to me, and every time I came back different. These experiences, which doctors call NDEs, near-death experiences, showed me things I never imagined existed. It's like a curtain has opened and I can see beyond what our eyes normally see. I'm not talking about hallucinations or dreams. I'm talking about something real, something that affected me in a way that I don't even know how to explain. I will try to tell you everything in the smallest details, so you can understand how I got here, how I went from an ordinary guy to someone who sees life in a completely different way. And look, it's not that I became a guru or anything like that. I'm still the same Ezra I always was, but now with a little more unusual baggage, let's say. Oh, and there's one more thing. During these experiences, I received a message about something that will happen between October 13th and 17th, 2024. Something big, a transformation. I don't know exactly what it is, but I feel like it's important. I'll talk more about this later, I promise. For now, I want you to understand my journey. How a curious boy turned into a man who saw death up close more times than he would have liked. It's a long story, sometimes scary, sometimes beautiful, but always fascinating. At least for me. So if you're ready, let's start at the beginning. The first time I died. It seems strange to say that, doesn't it? But that's how I felt. As if he had died and come back. And it all started when I was just 9 years old, with a simple touch of a socket. I was always a curious child, you know, the kind that parents need to keep an eye on all the time because they are always wanting to touch everything, find out how things work. In our living room, we had this incredible digital aquarium. It was a fascinating thing for me. He projected images of prehistoric crabs, and I spent hours and hours looking at it, trying to understand every detail. It was an ordinary day. I must have been 9 years old. He was lying on the living room floor, very close to the aquarium, watching as always. I don't know exactly what came over me. Maybe it was that typical childhood curiosity, you know? I reached out and touched the aquarium. So far, so good. The problem is that, without thinking, my hand slipped, and I ended up touching an electrical outlet that was nearby. What happened next was intense. I felt like my whole body had been shaken from the inside. The electrical discharge threw me backwards, and everything went dark for an instant. But here's where things get really interesting. Instead of the darkness I expected, I suddenly found myself surrounded by light. It wasn't a bright light, you know. It was soft, welcoming. And then, I noticed I wasn't alone. There was, well, I don't really know how to describe it. They were like beings made of bright blue light. They looked like candles, but alive, moving around me. The most incredible thing is that I didn't feel scared. None. On the contrary, it was as if I was enveloped by a peace I had never experienced before. It was comforting, reassuring. And then, I heard voices. Not with my ears, understand? It was as if the voices were inside my head, clear as crystal. They said, "Don't be afraid. It's not your time." It was all so fast and at the same time so eternal. When I opened my eyes again, I saw my father shaking me. His face was pale, his eyes wide with pure terror. He kept repeating that he had brought me back, that I had stopped breathing for a few seconds. But you know, while everyone around me was panicking, I felt at peace, calm. as if he knew that no matter what happened, everything would be okay. It was a strange feeling for a 9-year-old, I admit. At that moment, I didn't fully understand what had happened, but something inside me knew that this hadn't been just an ordinary faint. It wasn't just my father reviving me. I had gone somewhere. I had seen something that would change my life forever. That was my first near-death experience. The first time I crossed the line between this world and, well, whatever lies beyond. And although I didn't know it at the time, it would only be the beginning of a much greater journey. Years passed after that first incident, and I grew up like any other boy. But that experience never completely left me. It was always there, in the back of my mind, like a secret I didn't quite know how to share. I was 15 when it happened again. It was a summer day, and some school friends had organized a meeting at one of their pools. You know what teenagers are like, don't you? Full of energy, always wanting to show off, make jokes. We were all in the water having fun, when one of my friends decided it would be funny to sink me. You know, those tasteless jokes we make when we're young and don't really think about the consequences. At first, it was kind of fun. He would sink me. I would come back to the surface, everyone would laugh. But last time, well, things got out of hand. When he pushed me down, my legs got caught in something. I don't know if it was the pool drain or what, but I couldn't climb up. I started to panic. I remember struggling, flailing, desperately trying to get back to the surface. The air in my lungs was running out and everything started to get dark. And then it happened again. One moment I was struggling in the water. The next I was back in that place. The columns of blue light were there, just like the first time. It was as if no time had passed since the taking incident. The same peace enveloped me, the same feeling that everything would be okay. The voices returned, as clear as before. You will survive. There is no need to be afraid. I don't know how long I stayed there. It could have been seconds or an eternity. Time seemed to make no sense in that place, but suddenly, I felt a sharp pain in my chest, and opened my eyes, coughing and spitting out water. The pool lifeguard was on top of me. He had just pulled me out of the water and performed CPR. All my friends were around, some crying, others screaming for help. But I could only smile. I know it must have seemed strange to them. After all, I had almost died. But at that moment, all I felt was gratitude and a deep certainty that this was not the end of me. The voices were right. I had survived. This second experience made me realize that what had happened years before was not an isolated case. It wasn't a coincidence. There was something more, something I didn't fully understand, but it was definitely connected to me in some way. It was from that day on that I started looking at life in a different way. I began to value every moment, every breath, because I knew, better than anyone, how fragile and precious life can be. Years passed and I became an adult. I married Vivian, the most incredible woman I've ever met, and we built a life together. But those two near-death experiences never left me. They were always there, in the back of my mind, reminding me that there was something beyond this life as we know it. I was 27 when it happened the third time. My father had moved into a new apartment, and I was there to help him settle in. We were in the bathroom, trying to install a large mirror on the wall. I held the ladder while my father climbed to fix the mirror. It all happened very quickly. Without realizing it, I leaned against the sink. The sink was wet and there was a bare wire somewhere. The electric current went through me like lightning. I remember feeling my entire body contract and then being thrown out of the bathroom. What happened next was different. The other times I had gone to that place of light and peace. This time it was as if I had stepped out of my own body. I could see myself, lying on the floor in the hallway. I saw my father running down the stairs, shouting my name. I saw Vivian coming from the kitchen with a wet cloth. It was the strangest thing I had ever experienced. I floated above the scene, observing everything. I tried to shout to them, tell them I was okay, but no one could hear me. It was as if I were a ghost, present but invisible. The feeling was frightening and at the same time incredibly freeing. There was no pain, there was no fear, just pure awareness, watching. And then, as suddenly as it had started, it was over. I was pulled back into my body with an overwhelming force. I opened my eyes and saw my father and Vivian's worried faces above me. But something was wrong. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. It was as if my body had forgotten how to function. I stayed like that for hours, paralyzed, unable to communicate that I was conscious, that I was okay. It was only the following day that I managed to recover my speech and movements. This experience shook me in a way that others hadn't. Seeing my own body from the outside, watching my loved ones trying to save me, it was surreal. And it made me question everything I thought I knew about life and death. I realized that these experiences were not coincidences. There was something bigger going on, something I didn't fully understand, but it was clearly connected to me in some way. It was from that moment that I started looking for answers. I started reading about near-death experiences, about spirituality, about the nature of consciousness. Not that I found all the answers, far from it, but I began to understand that there was much more to this world than meets the eye. And most importantly, I began to understand that maybe I had a purpose, that maybe these experiences were preparing me for something. I just didn't know what, yet. January 11th, 2000. This date will forever be etched in my memory. It was the day I had my fourth and most intense near-death experience. The day I received a message that would completely change my perspective on the future. I was in Germany, participating in an international exchange as a police officer. It was an ordinary day. I was driving along the A100 highway in Berlin. Traffic was normal for a Tuesday morning. I remember thinking about the dinner I planned to make for Vivian when I got home. Suddenly, without warning, a vehicle hit me from the side. The impact was brutal. My car spun out of control, colliding with other vehicles. I could hear the sound of metal twisting, glass breaking. It was as if time had slowed down. And then, something incredible happened. In an instant, I saw my entire life flash before my eyes. It's not just an expression, it really happened. Every important moment, every person I loved, every choice I made. Everything was there, like a movie in high speed. When the car finally stopped spinning, everything went dark. But I was not alone in the darkness. The columns of blue light, my old acquaintances, reappeared. But this time it was different. The feeling wasn't just of peace, it was of belonging. The voices I already knew said, "Welcome, you're home." For a moment I felt an immense desire to stay. It was as if the entire weight of the world had been lifted from my shoulders. There was no pain, there was no worry, just a feeling of completeness that I had never experienced before. But then I thought about Vivienne, about our little son. I couldn't leave them. I begged to go back, even though I knew how painful it would be to return to my injured body. It was at that moment that I received the message. A voice, different from the others, deeper and more resonant, spoke directly into my mind. Between October 13th and 17th, 2024, the Earth will undergo a global transformation. These will be difficult but necessary days. After this transformation, there will come a time of spiritual renewal and prosperity. I was astonished. I didn't know how to process that information. Before I could ask any questions, I felt a force pulling me back. It was like being thrown through a tunnel at high speed. When I opened my eyes, I was back in my body. The pain was unbearable. The car was on fire and I was trapped in the wreckage. I heard sirens in the distance, approaching quickly. They were the longest minutes of my life. I struggled to breathe. The heat from the flames became more and more intense. Finally, I saw faces appear at the broken window. There were other police officers armed with fire extinguishers. They managed to put out the fire and get me out of the car. At the hospital, the diagnosis was grim. Broken neck, multiple slipped spinal discs. The doctors weren't sure if I would walk again. I spent 6 months in intensive recovery, followed by 3 years of ongoing treatment. To this day, I use medicinal cannabis to control the chronic pain that remains as a reminder of that day. But, despite all the physical pain, something inside me had fundamentally changed. The message I received was engraved in my mind. October 13, 2024. A global transformation. I didn't know exactly what it meant, but I felt it was important, that I had been chosen to receive this information for some reason. Recovery was a long and painful process, both physically and emotionally. There were days when the pain was so intense that I could barely move. Others, where the frustration of not being able to do simple things consumed me. But amidst all this, something was changing inside me. The near-death experiences I had had were no longer just distant memories. They had become an integral part of who I was. Each day of recovery, I reflected on what I had experienced, on the messages I had received. I started to see life in a completely new way. Every breath, every moment, gained new meaning. I realized that I had been given not just a second chance, but a third, a fourth, and even a fifth chance to live. And this could not be by chance. It was during this period that I began to turn to spirituality, not in a traditional religious way, but in a very personal and deep way. I started meditating, studying different philosophies, trying to better understand the purpose of life, of my life. And the deeper I got into this spiritual journey, the more I felt like I needed to do something with everything I had learned. I couldn't just keep these experiences to myself. I felt I had a duty to share, to help others in some way. That's how I decided to become a pastor. Not in a traditional church, but as a spiritual guide for those like me, seeking answers to life's big questions. I started offering counseling, sharing my story with anyone who would listen. At the same time, I felt a calling to serve in other ways. I became a volunteer at the Red Cross, helping in emergency situations. There was something deeply satisfying about being able to reach out to people in times of crisis, knowing that I myself had been on the brink of death so many times. And it was during this work that I discovered something surprising. I realized that when I looked into people's eyes, I could see more. They weren't clear visions or prophecies, nothing that dramatic. They were more like impressions, images, and symbols that seemed to reflect each person's deepest traumas and hopes. At first, I was scared by this new ability. I didn't know what to do with her. But little by little, I learned to use it to bring comfort and inspiration to the people I serve. It's like I can see beyond the masks we all wear, straight into the heart of each individual. This journey of recovery and spiritual awakening has completely transformed me. It was no longer just Ezra, the police officer who had a terrible accident. I became someone with a mission, someone who had seen beyond the veil of death and returned to tell the story. And through it all, that message about October 2024 kept echoing in my mind. I knew I was preparing for something big, something that would affect not just me, but the entire world. I just didn't know exactly how or when this preparation would come to fruition. Over time, I came to better understand the purpose behind all those near-death experiences. It wasn't just about me, about my own spiritual journey. It was about how I could use these experiences to make a difference in the lives of others. My life mission became clear: to bring joy, comfort, and hope wherever I went. It seems simple, doesn't it? But the truth is, it's a daily challenge, especially when you work with people who are going through difficult times. I started working with autistic children. It's work that requires a lot of patience and love, but it brings me immense satisfaction. Seeing these children's faces light up when they can express themselves, when they make a connection, is priceless. I also started singing in clubs and hospices. It may seem like a strange combination, I know, but music has an incredible power to touch people, whether it's someone enjoying a night of fun or someone in their last days of life. And for me, being able to bring a moment of joy or peace to these people is a privilege. One of the most important things I've learned is to treat each person with unconditional love. This includes those who act aggressively or rudely. I learned to see beyond external behavior, to understand that we are all fighting internal battles that others cannot see. Sometimes when I look into the eyes of someone who is particularly aggressive, I see images of pain, of trauma. And it reminds me to treat this person with even more kindness, because I know they are hurting in ways that they may not even fully understand. My wife, Vivian, has been my pillar throughout this journey. She was by my side during recovery, supported me when I decided to change careers, and continues to be my greatest companion in this life mission. Your unconditional love and support give me strength to continue, even on the hardest days. And difficult days exist, I won't deny it. There are times when the physical pain from my injury becomes almost unbearable. Days when I wonder if I'm really making a difference. But then, I remember my near-death experiences, the peace I felt, the messages I received, and that gives me strength to continue. Every person I managed to help, every smile I managed to make, every heart I managed to touch, is a confirmation that I am on the right path, that all those near-death experiences had a greater purpose. And of course, always in the back of my mind is that message about October 2024. As time passes, I feel a growing urgency, a need to do more, to reach more people, to spread more love and understanding around the world. Because something tells me that we will need this a lot in the times to come. Following this new mission in life has not been easy. There are days when I wonder if I'm crazy, if all these experiences weren't just hallucinations caused by the trauma. After all, not everyone dies 4 times and comes back to tell the story, right? But then something happens that makes me sure I'm on the right path. Like the time I was singing in a hospice, and a lady who hadn't spoken in months suddenly started singing along with me. Or when an autistic child who I had been working with for months without much progress suddenly looked into my eyes and smiled. It's these moments that keep me going, that remind me why I'm doing all this. It's not about me. It never has been. It's about all these people I can help, all these lives I can touch in some way. Of course, not everyone understands or accepts what I do. I've been called a charlatan, a crazy person, a liar. Some people get uncomfortable when I talk about my near-death experiences or the message I received about 2024, and that's okay. I understand. It's hard to believe in something you've never experienced. The hardest thing sometimes is dealing with people's expectations. Many come to me hoping that I have all the answers, that I can solve all their problems, and the truth is that I can't. I don't have all the answers. I only have my experience, my faith, and my genuine desire to help. But you know what's amazing? Even when I can't give people what they expect, I often end up giving them something they really need. Sometimes all someone needs is to be heard, to be truly seen. And that I can do. My ability to see symbols and images in people's eyes has been both a blessing and a challenge. It's a huge responsibility to have access to this window into people's souls. I have learned to be very careful about what I share and how I share it. People are not always ready to face what they carry inside them. And of course, there's the constant challenge of balancing all of this with my personal life. Vivian has been amazing, but I know it's not easy for her. There are days when I come home exhausted, physically and emotionally. Days when the pain from my injury is so bad I can barely move. In these moments, she is the one who reminds me to take care of myself, that I cannot help others if I am not well. But at the end of the day, when I lay my head on the pillow, I feel a peace I've never known before through all these experiences. I know I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, that every challenge, every obstacle, every moment of doubt is all part of a greater journey, and always in the back of my mind is that date. October 2024. As it approaches, I feel a mix of anxiety and anticipation. Whatever lies ahead, I know that all of these experiences, all of these challenges and rewards have prepared me to face it. As the years pass and we approach October 2024, I feel a growing urgency in my work. It's not just about helping people in the here and now, but about preparing them for what's to come. Of course, I don't know exactly what will happen. The message I received spoke of a global transformation, but the details are unclear. So how do I prepare people for something that I don't even fully understand? This has been my biggest struggle lately. I decided to focus on strengthening people spiritually and emotionally. After all, whatever change is coming, Resilient and compassionate people will be better prepared to face it. I started organizing meditation and reflection groups. In these meetings, we share our experiences, fears, and hopes. I teach breathing and mindfulness techniques to help people center themselves in times of stress. But more than that, I encourage people to connect with each other, to build a network of mutual support. I also intensified my work with the Red Cross, focusing especially on disaster preparedness. Not that I think any specific disaster will happen, but I feel that it is important for people to know how to act in crisis situations. In all these activities, I try to convey a message of hope. Yes, difficult times may come. Yes, there can be significant changes in our lives. But I also believe that, on the other side of this transformation, there is immense potential for growth and renewal. Vivienne has been my tireless partner in this preparation. She organizes workshops on sustainability and self-reliance, teaching people how to be more self-reliant. Together, we are creating a community of people who not only look forward to the future, but are actively preparing for it. Of course, not everyone receives this message well. Some accuse me of spreading fear, others of giving false hope. I've been called a prophet of the apocalypse and a cult leader. These comments hurt, I won't deny it. But I understand that they come from a place of fear and uncertainty. What keeps me firm is the certainty I feel in my heart. That peace I experienced during my near-death experiences. That feeling that there is something greater guiding us. That has never left me. And that's what I try to convey to people. It's not about fear, it's about trust. Confidence that no matter what comes our way, we have the inner strength to face it. As October 2024 approaches, I feel a mix of emotions. There is anxiety, yes. There are moments of doubt. But predominantly, there is a sense of purpose. I feel like my whole life, all my experiences, have led me to this moment. I don't know exactly what the future holds, but I know I'm doing everything I can to prepare myself and to help others prepare. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. We are on this journey together, and together, we will face whatever comes. Sometimes when I look back at that 9-year-old boy who touched an electrical outlet, I can hardly believe the journey that brought me here. Every near-death experience, every challenge, every person who crossed my path, it all seems to have been part of a bigger plan. A plan that is about to reveal itself completely. Here we are, on the threshold of what I believe will be a new era for humanity. As I write these words, October 2024 is just a few weeks away. The anxiety and anticipation are palpable, not just in me, but in everyone around me. Over the past few months, I have noticed subtle changes in the world. Maybe it's just my perception heightened by expectation, but it seems like people are more aware, more connected to each other and the world around them. There is a feeling that something is about to happen, even among those who do not know the message I received. Many ask me if I'm afraid of what's to come. The truth is no. Not because I know exactly what will happen, but because I have learned through my near-death experiences that there is something bigger than us driving all of this. I learned that death is not the end, and that there is really nothing to fear. Of course, that doesn't mean I'm completely calm. I feel a huge responsibility. What if I misinterpreted the message? What if I didn't do enough to prepare people? These doubts haunt me sometimes, especially in the quiet hours of the night. But then I remember that peace I felt during my near-death experiences. I remember the gentle voices that guided me back to life so many times. And I know deep down in my being that everything will be okay. Not because it will be easy. The message clearly spoke of difficult days, but because I believe that we have the necessary strength within us to face whatever comes our way. Vivienne and I have spent a lot of time reflecting on everything we've experienced so far, about how our lives have changed since that first accident, when I was just a curious kid, about all the people we met, all the lives we touched along the way. There is a feeling of completion, as if a cycle is closing, but at the same time, there's excitement for what's to come. Whatever this global transformation is, I feel it will be the beginning of something new and wonderful for humanity. Maybe it's naive on my part, but I prefer to face the future with hope rather than fear. In the coming days, I will continue doing what I have been doing, helping people, spreading love and understanding, preparing myself and others for what is to come. I don't know if I'm doing everything right, but I'm doing the best I can. And in the end, I think that's what matters. For those reading this, I want to leave a message. Do not be afraid. Whatever the future holds, remember that you are stronger than you know. Remember that there is a light within each of us, a light that I have seen and felt during my near-death experiences, a light that nothing can extinguish. We are on the cusp of something big, something that goes beyond our current understanding, but we are in this together. And together I am sure we will emerge from this transformation stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. As I write these final words, I feel a mix of emotions: gratitude for everything I've experienced, anticipation for what's to come, and a deep love for all humanity. I don't know exactly what the next few days have in store for us, but I know I'm ready to face them. And you? Are you ready? Because something tells me we're about to embark on the greatest adventure humanity has ever known. An adventure that will begin in October 2024, but whose effects will extend far beyond. An adventure that, I am sure, will lead us to a future brighter than we can imagine. So, take a deep breath, open your heart, and get ready. The future is coming, and it promises to be extraordinary.